Hear me now, because I am speaking with urgency, and urgency from my mouth is never wasted. No one around you is going to tell you what I am about to tell you. It did not come through a person, and it was never meant to. I am placing it straight into your spirit, where no one can edit it and no one can talk you out of it. Stay with my voice. Do not let these next moments slip past you the way this whole week has slipped past you. Your name has been spoken in a place you have never stood in. A decision was made concerning you, and it was made in your favor. That is the first half of what I have come to say. The second half is harder, and I will not soften it, because softening it would not help you. There is something in your life right now that is quietly working to make sure you are not standing in the right place when that decision becomes visible. So this is both a warning and a summons. Most people only ever get one or the other. You are receiving both in the same breath, because I do not want you to hear the good part and go back to sleep. A thing can be prepared for you and still be missed. Israel stood at the edge of a land I had already given them, and they turned back, not because I withdrew it, but because they measured it with their fear instead of my word. I am not saying this to frighten you. Fear makes people freeze, and I need you moving. I am saying it because you have been treating small things as if they were nothing, and some of those small things are steering you. A rudder is small, a hinge is small. The direction of your whole life has been turning on decisions you did not think were worth naming. You feel it already. There is a pressure in your chest that has been there for some days now, and you have blamed it on tiredness, on money, on the people who disappoint you. It is none of those. It is my hand on you, pressing in one direction, and you have been leaning the other way. That pressure will not lift by being ignored. It will only grow heavier, because I do not let go of what I have set my mind on. Now let me tell you how I speak, because you have been waiting for the wrong thing. There was a night when a boy named Samuel was lying down in the temple, and I called his name. He got up and went to the old priest, because that was the only voice he knew how to expect. I called again. He went to the priest again. 3 times he ran toward a man when I was the one speaking, and it was not until someone finally told him to answer directly that he stopped running the wrong way. That is exactly what you have been doing. You have been carrying something I placed in you to a human being for confirmation. You have been asking people to tell you what I already told you. And when they hesitated or shrugged or said nothing at all, you took their silence as my answer. It was not my answer. It was just their limit. There is a reason this news did not come to you through anyone's mouth. If a person had told you, you would have weighed it against their track record. You would have wondered what they wanted. You would have believed it on Monday and doubted it by Thursday, because human words have a short life in a tired heart. I am bypassing all of that. I am speaking in the one place where you cannot pretend you did not hear. You have been overlooked in rooms where you deserve to be seen. I know. You watched people with half your heart and a third of your effort get handed things you had been asking me for, and you smiled and you went home and something in you got a little quieter. That quietness is what I am here to break, not with noise, with truth. Because here is what you have never let yourself consider. You were not passed over. You were held. There is a difference between a door that is shut against you and a door that is being kept for you until the room behind it is ready. You have been standing in front of the second kind and reading it like the first. And every year you read it wrong, you gave away a little more of your expectation. I want it back, today. Look at how Gideon was found. He was down in a wine press, beating out wheat in a hole in the ground, hiding his own food from raiders, because he was that afraid of losing the little he had. And I sent word to him, and the word was, mighty man of valor. Not one thing about his posture matched that name. He argued with it. He asked for signs. He asked twice. But the name was true before he agreed with it. And the name was true while he was still crouching in that pit. That is the position you are in right now. What I call you and what you look like have not caught up to each other yet. Do not make the mistake of trusting your circumstances over my voice. Your circumstances are a report. My voice is a decision. You have made mistakes. I am not going to pretend otherwise, and I am not going to let you use them as an excuse either. I already took them into account before I ever spoke your name. What I am doing in your life was never built on the assumption that you would be flawless. It was built on the assumption that you would be willing. Willing is a much smaller thing than perfect, and it is the only thing I have ever actually needed from you. So do not stand there running through the list of every place you failed. That list is old, and it is not the document I am working from. There is another record with your name on it, and it does not read the way you think it reads. Now, stay close, because what I am about to show you next is the part that most people never hear, and it will explain nearly everything about the last 2 years of your life. Speak it plainly if you believe me. Amen. There is a room you have never entered where matters concerning your life are settled. You cannot walk into it. You cannot argue your case there. But your name is known in that room, and something was released from it recently that has not yet arrived at your door. This is why you have felt strange lately. Not sick, not sad exactly. Just aware, the way a person is aware when someone is standing behind them before they turn around. That awareness is not your imagination working overtime. It is the nearness of something. You are feeling the weight of a thing that has left its origin and is on its way to you. I want you to understand how carefully this was arranged, because you have a habit of assuming you are an afterthought. There is a widow, I remember, gathering 2 sticks outside a town called Zarephath, planning to cook one last meal and lie down to die. She did not know she had already been appointed. Before her hunger reached its worst hour, I had spoken to a prophet and told him where to walk. Her provision was assigned before her crisis peaked. She simply had not met it yet. That is where you are standing. The assignment came first. The meeting comes second. And the gap between those 2 things is the space where most people give up, because the gap feels like abandonment when it is actually logistics. Now hear the harder word. There is a way to lose what has been assigned, and it is not by sinning too badly or praying too little. It is by talking too soon. You have a habit of announcing things before they have roots. You get a stirring, a good report, a small opening, and you carry it straight to someone who has never once celebrated you properly. You lay it in front of them and you watch their face. And when their face does not light up, something in you goes cold, and the thing that was growing inside you takes a wound it did not need to take. I am asking you to stop doing that. Not forever. Just now, in this season, while what I am forming is still soft. Think about Joseph. He was given a picture of his own future while he was still a boy, and he took it to the breakfast table and laid it out in front of brothers who already resented him. He was not lying. What he saw was true, and it all came to pass exactly as he was shown. But he handed a true thing to the wrong ears at the wrong hour, and it cost him 13 years, a pit, a lie, a prison, and the long silence of being forgotten by a man who owed him. The dream survived. Joseph survived. But the road got so much longer than it needed to be. So guard this. Let it grow in the dark for a while. The seed that keeps getting dug up to check on its progress never becomes anything. Silence right now is not fear, and it is not hiding. It is protection. And when the time comes, you will not have to explain a thing, because the change in your life will do all the speaking for you. There is something else I need you to see about how I move, and it will spare you a great deal of confusion in the days ahead. There was a prophet who ran into the wilderness because he was exhausted and afraid and finished with his own life. I told him to stand on the mountain because I was going to pass by. And a wind came strong enough to tear the rocks apart, and I was not in the wind. And the ground shook, and I was not in the shaking. And fire came, and I was not in the fire. Then, after all of it, there was a sound so low and so thin that it could only be heard by someone who had stopped waiting for spectacle. That is how I have been speaking to you. You have been asking me for the wind. You have wanted something loud, something undeniable, something that would settle the argument in your own head once and for all. And while you were watching the sky for fire, I was speaking under the noise, in the small, steady sense that a certain thing was not right and a certain other thing was. You felt it. You called it a mood. You called it overthinking. You went ahead anyway. I am telling you plainly now, so there is no more confusion about it. That quiet knowing in you is not anxiety. It is not indigestion. It is me. And you have been overruling me with your own reasoning for long enough. Here is how you can tell the difference, and I want you to hold on to this, because you will need it soon. What comes from me steadies you. It may ask hard things of you, but it does not make you frantic. It slows your breathing. It gives you the next step without demanding the whole staircase. What does not come from me rushes you. It says now, immediately, before you think, before you ask, or you will lose it. Anything that will only survive your haste was never mine to begin with. Fear pushes. I lead. Those are two different sensations, and you already know which one you have been obeying. You are more capable than you have let yourself believe. And I say that not as encouragement, but as a matter of fact. I do not call people to things they cannot carry. I have never once done that. So when you look at what is ahead and feel that familiar tightening, that voice saying, "Who do you think you are?" understand that the voice is not evaluating you accurately. It is protecting a version of you that I am in the process of retiring. Let it be retired. It has served you long enough. It kept you small when small was safe, and small is not safe anymore, because small will not fit through the door I am opening. You have carried things for years that were never yours to hold. Other people's disappointment, other people's expectations, a weight of shame that belonged to a season you have already walked out of. I am not asking you to get stronger so you can carry them better. I am asking you to set them down, because the strength you are spending on them is the exact strength you will need for what is next. Set it down, right now. And keep listening, because I am about to tell you what the waiting was actually made of. You have wanted an explanation for the delay, and you have assumed the explanation would be about your character. That every closed year was a note about your worth. That somewhere there was a list of qualities you were still missing. That is not what happened, and I want to correct it before it hardens into something you believe about yourself permanently. You were never the only piece being moved. There were other lives involved in this, and those lives were not on your schedule. People had to arrive at places they had not yet decided to go. Circumstances had to break in rooms you have never visited. A door that opens for you is almost never a door that only concerns you. Look at how it worked for a foreign woman named Ruth. She was poor, widowed, and living in a country that was not hers. She went out one morning to pick up leftover grain behind the harvesters, which is what people did when they had nothing. And it is written that she happened to come to a certain field. That is how it is recorded. She happened to come there. She had no plan, no strategy, no idea who owned the ground under her feet. And on that same day, from a different direction entirely, a man named Boaz came out from Bethlehem to look over his workers. Two people, moving separately, neither one aware of the other, arriving in the same field on the same morning. Her whole future turned on a timing she did not arrange and could not have arranged. If she had come a week earlier, the field would have been standing and untouched. A week later, and it would have been stripped bare. Her portion required a day, and she did not choose the day. You have been demanding that I explain a schedule you were never in charge of. Let that go. It was not a judgment on you. My child, I am asking you to place a portion of what you have, something of real weight, upon the altar of this work, as gold laid on the scales of this calling. Let it be a seed sown into deep water, an offering set on stone, not held back in fear. This is proof that your trust rests in my hand to provide, and that your heart no longer clings to lack. What you release in faith does not leave your life. It moves ahead of you into the harvest I am preparing. Now let me speak to the part of you that is tired of trying. There were fishermen who worked an entire night on the water and pulled up nothing at all. Not a small catch. Nothing. They came in at dawn and were washing their nets, which is what you do when the work is finished, and the answer was no. And they were told to go back out into the deep water and let the nets down again. Consider how that sounded. These were men who knew that lake by trade and by inheritance. They had just spent every dark hour proving it was empty. And now they were being asked to undo the washing, push the boat back out, and repeat the exact motion that had already failed them. One of them said it out loud. "Master, we have worked all night and taken nothing." And then he added 5 words that changed the whole shape of his life. "Nevertheless, at your word I will." That is the sentence I am waiting to hear from you. Not enthusiasm, not confidence. He had neither. He had exhaustion and a professional opinion that this would not work. What he had underneath both of those was a decision to move on my word instead of on his evidence. And the catch that came up nearly tore the nets and nearly sank 2 boats. The water had been full the whole night. That is what I want you to sit with. The fish were not created at dawn. They were there while he was failing, in a place he had not been told to go yet. Your situation is the same. What you need is not absent. It is deeper than where you have been dropping your effort, and you have been working the shallows because the shallows are close to shore and you can still see the ground. I am calling you out past the point where you can see the bottom. That is what trust actually costs. Not a feeling. A boat length past comfort. And I know what rises in you when I say that. You start calculating what it would take, what it would cost, what people would say, what happens if it does not work. Stop. You are not being asked to guarantee an outcome. You are being asked to make one movement in a direction I have named. There is something else about that morning on the water that I want you to notice. The men were tired, but they had not left. They were still there, still handling their nets, still standing near the boats. If they had walked home in frustration at the end of that empty night, they would have missed the instruction entirely. You are still here. That matters more than you think. You have had every reason to stop listening to me, and some of those reasons were legitimate, and yet here you are, hearing my voice again. That is not stubbornness. That is something in you that never fully agreed with the disappointment. Hold on to that. It is the only qualification I have ever asked for. Now I want to warn you about a specific way people lose this. When the answer takes a long time, the heart starts protecting itself. It lowers what it asks for. It says, I will settle for peace. I will settle for stability. I will just be grateful for what I have. And that sounds like maturity, but sometimes it is not maturity at all. Sometimes it is a wound that learned to speak politely. There is a real gratitude that holds a full heart open, and there is a false one that closes the door quietly so nothing else can get in and hurt it. I know which one has been living in you, and I am asking you to open that door again, even though it is the more dangerous thing to do. You are allowed to want what I promised you. You are allowed to expect it. That is not arrogance. That is agreement. Stay with me now because I have to show you what is standing in the way. There is something in your life you have stopped confronting because you learned to move around it instead. You know exactly what it is. You did not have to search for it. It came to mind before I finished the sentence, and your first instinct was to defend it, which tells you everything about how deep it sits. It is not dramatic. That is the danger of it. If it were obviously destructive, you would have dealt with it years ago because you are not a foolish person. This thing is quieter than that. It takes a little from you and gives a little back, just enough to keep the arrangement alive. And over time, you built your whole routine around avoiding the one honest conversation that would end it. That is what I mean when I say you have been adjusting instead of correcting. A person who keeps bending around an obstacle eventually forgets they are bent. They start calling the bend their posture. You have been walking crooked so long that straight would feel like an injury. I am not asking you to be stronger at carrying it. That is the request you keep making of yourself, and it is the wrong one. Strength applied to the wrong thing is just a slower way of losing. Here is what I see that you do not. It is not only taking your time and your peace, it is taking your discernment. When something drains you constantly, you lose the ability to tell the difference between what is right and what is merely familiar, and a person who cannot tell that difference will walk past their own answer without recognizing it. That is the actual danger, not the thing itself, what the thing is doing to your ability to see. Now let me tell you about a man who almost lost his healing because the instructions offended him. Naaman was a commander. He was respected, wealthy, decorated, and he had a disease that all of that could not touch. He traveled to another country with silver and gold and letters from a king, ready to pay whatever the price was. And the prophet he came to see did not even come outside. He sent a servant to the door with a message: "Go wash 7 times in the Jordan." Naaman went away furious. He said it out loud. He had pictured how this would go, a ceremony, a hand waved over the spot, some visible act worthy of a man of his standing. Instead, he was handed a muddy river and a number. He said there were better rivers back home. He was ready to travel all the way back with the disease still on him because the cure did not respect his position. It was his own servants who talked him down. They said, if he had asked you to do something great, you would have done it without hesitation. So why not this small thing? He went, he washed, he came up clean. Let your own voice answer me now. Yes, Lord. I am telling you this because you are standing at the same edge. What I am asking of you is smaller than what you were braced for. and that is precisely why you keep skipping past it. You have prepared yourself for a great sacrifice. You would fast for a month. You would move to another city. Those feel worthy of the size of your problem. But the instruction I have actually given you is unimpressive, repetitive, and requires no audience at all. End the arrangement. Have the conversation. Stop returning to the thing you already know is finished. It is not a great work. It is a small obedience you have refused 6 times. And it is the door. Now I want to speak about the people standing near you, and I want you to hear me carefully, because this is easily misunderstood. I am not telling you that anyone in your life is your enemy. Most of them are not. Most of them love you as much as they know how. But love and alignment are 2 separate things, and someone can care about you deeply while being completely unable to agree with where I am taking you. Some of the voices around you are not opposing you. They are simply describing the ceiling of their own experience and calling it reality. When they say be careful, they mean it kindly. They are telling you the size of the world as they have known it. The problem is that you have been letting the size of their world set the size of yours. Pay attention to what happens inside you after certain conversations. Not during, after. There are people you can speak with and afterward you feel clear, steady, more like yourself. And there are people you speak with and afterward everything feels heavier, smaller, more complicated than it was an hour before. Nothing hostile was said. You just came away with less. That is the measurement I want you to start using. Not whether someone is good or bad, what you have left after they leave. You do not need to announce anything. You do not need a confrontation or a speech. You simply need to stop bringing the tender things to the people who consistently return them bruised. That is not rejection. That is care for what I am growing. And there is one more voice I need to name, and it is the one you trust the most, which is your own. You have a running commentary in your head that has been narrating your life for years, and much of it is not true. It says you always start things you do not finish. It says people eventually get tired of you. It says every good season is borrowed and will be collected on. You did not choose these sentences. You absorbed them from rooms you were too young to leave. But you have been repeating them like they are facts about your nature. They are not facts. They are old injuries that learn to speak in your own voice, which is what makes them so convincing. I want you to start challenging them the moment they appear, not with cheerfulness, but with truth. When it says you cannot, answer with what I have already done through you. You have survived seasons that should have finished you. Something carried you through those, and it was not luck, and it was not your own strength either. That was me, and I have not changed my position since. Stay with me. There is something you are being asked to release, and I'm going to tell you why it will not cost you what you think it will. When Lazarus came out of that tomb, he came out still wrapped, hands bound, feet bound, cloth over his face. He was alive, fully and completely alive, and he still could not walk properly or see where he was going. And the instruction given to the people standing there was, loose him and let him go. That is your situation exactly. You are not waiting to be made alive. That already happened. You are wrapped in the grave clothes of a season that is finished, and you have been walking around in them so long that they feel like your own skin. The binding is not proof that you are still dead. It is just leftover cloth from a place you have already left. So when I ask you to let something go, understand what I am actually asking. I am not taking, I am unwrapping. You keep treating release as subtraction. You add up what you would lose, the familiarity, the routine, the small comforts, the identity you built around it, and the total looks frightening. But you are counting the cloth as if it were the body. It is not. It weighs something, it is wrapped tightly, and it is not you. There is a habit in your life that once served a purpose. There is a way of relating to people that once kept you safe. There may be a place you keep returning to that used to be exactly right. None of those things were mistakes when you took them up. They were correct for who you were then. They are simply no longer correct for who you are becoming, and the difficulty of releasing them has nothing to do with their value and everything to do with how long you have held them. Do not let the ache of letting go convince you that you are making a mistake. Pain and error are not the same signal. A hand that has gripped something for years will hurt when it opens, and the hurt is not a verdict on whether opening was right. Now, I want to tell you about resistance, because you have been reading it backwards. Jacob spent a night alone by a river, and a man wrestled with him until the sun came up. All night. Not a moment of it easy, and at the end of it, his hip was out of joint, and he walked away limping for the rest of his life. But he also walked away with a new name and a blessing he refused to leave without. He said it plainly. I will not let you go unless you bless me. That night was the hardest of his life, and it was also the night everything turned. If he had judged the struggle by how it felt while it was happening, he would have let go before daybreak and gone back across the river unchanged. You have been treating difficulty as a sign that you have taken a wrong turn. Sometimes it is, but often it is the opposite. Resistance frequently means you have finally reached the thing that has been holding your life in place, and it is not letting go without a fight. Ease is not always a sign of my favor, and struggle is not always a sign of my absence. Ask yourself which kind of tired you are. There is the tiredness of doing the wrong thing for too long, and there is the tiredness of doing the right thing before it has produced anything yet. They feel almost identical from the inside. Only one of them means stop. If you believe I am with you in this, say so now. I believe. There is something else I want you to consider about how movement actually begins. Abraham was told to leave his country, his family, and his father's house and go to a land that would be shown to him. Not a land that had been shown, a land that would be. He was given a direction and no destination. He packed his household and walked out of everything he had ever known toward a place he could not name if anyone asked him. I am aware of how uncomfortable that is. You have been asking me for the whole plan before you will take the first step, and I have been giving you one step at a time, and you have interpreted that as me withholding. I am not withholding. I am moving at the speed of your trust, and I give the next stretch of road when you have walked the current one. A step taken in trust reveals the next step. That is not a delay tactic. That is the design. And I know why you want the full picture. It is not curiosity. It is that you want to evaluate the destination before committing, so that you can protect yourself from being wrong again. You have been wrong before and it cost you, and you swore quietly that you would never be that exposed again. That vow is the thing keeping you still. Let me show you one more person, because he did something you have never quite been willing to do. There was a blind man sitting beside a road outside Jericho, begging, which was the only work available to him. He heard that a crowd was passing and that a certain man was in it, and he began to shout. And the people around him, the ones who could see, told him to be quiet. They rebuked him. He was making a scene. He was embarrassing himself. He was reaching above what a man in his position ought to reach for. So he shouted louder, That is the entire turning point of his life, right there, not his faith in the abstract. The specific decision to raise his voice past the people telling him to lower it. He was called forward. And here is the detail I want you to hold. It is written that he threw off his outer cloak and jumped up. That cloak was likely everything he owned. For a beggar, it was his bed, his shelter, and the very thing he spread on the ground to collect coins. He threw it away before he received anything, while he was still blind, in a crowd, with no guarantee. He acted like a man who already had what he was going to get. That is what I have been waiting to see in you. Not more waiting, not more careful preparation. A single act that only makes sense if you actually believe me. Stay close, because now I need to tell you what you are being made into, and why that matters more than what you are being given. A woman came to a prophet with a debt she could not pay, and creditors coming to take her household. She was asked what she had left in her house. One small jar of oil. That was the entire inventory of her life. She was told to go out and borrow empty containers from every neighbor she had, and she was told something specific about it. Do not gather a few. Then she went inside, shut the door, and began to pour. The oil kept coming. It filled one vessel, then another, and it did not stop until every container in that house was full. And when she asked for one more, there was not one more. And the moment there was no more room, the oil stopped. Notice what determined the size of that miracle, not the jar. The oil had no limit in itself. What set the boundary was how many empty vessels she had been willing to go out and collect while she still had nothing but a debt and one small jar. This is what I mean when I tell you that you must become the person who can carry what is coming. It is not a test you have to pass to earn it. It is a matter of capacity. What I am sending you needs somewhere to be received, and I will not pour out more than your life is currently built to hold, because it would run out onto the ground and be lost, and you would be worse off than before. So look honestly at how many vessels you have gathered. Have you made any room at all? Or have you been asking me for a flood while keeping the same single jar on the same shelf, unwilling to knock on a single door? Room is made by decision, not by feeling. It looks like ending what should have ended. It looks like clearing hours that are currently spent on nothing. It looks like getting your affairs into a condition where an increase would not immediately be swallowed by the same disorder that swallowed the last one. And notice this too. She shut the door. What happened in that house happened privately, with no audience, before anyone in that town knew a thing about it. The whole increase took place behind a closed door and only became public when she went out to sell the oil. That is your instruction as well. Build the capacity quietly. Now, I want to say something about the smallness of what you are working with right now, because it discourages you more than you admit. There was a moment when the foundation of a temple was laid, and it was small compared to what had stood there before. Some of the older people wept when they saw it because they remembered the former glory, and this looked like nothing next to it. And the word that came was this: who has despised the day of small things? You have been despising your own small day. You look at the size of what you have started, the modest progress, the unimpressive numbers, the slow, ordinary work of your week, and you compare it to what you imagined, and you feel foolish. And in that feeling you have come close to abandoning the very foundation I asked you to lay. Do not measure a foundation against a finished building. That comparison is unfair, and it has never once produced anything good in you. A foundation is supposed to look like nothing. That is what a foundation is. There is something else forming that you cannot see, and I will name it now. I am placing people around you. Some of them are already near, and you have not recognized them yet, because they did not arrive with any impression of importance. They are quiet. They have not flattered you. They may be less impressive than the people you have been chasing approval from. But watch how you feel around them. Watch whether things become clearer or more tangled after time in their company. Others have not arrived yet, and when they come, they will not come loudly either. Do not rush to trust everyone, and do not close your heart out of caution. Use the measurement I gave you. Peace and clarity are how I mark my own. There is also a confidence I am building in you that will not depend on anyone's approval, and this is one of the greatest things I will do in your life, though you may not value it as highly as the other things you have asked for. You have lived a long time needing people to confirm you, needing the word of encouragement, the recognition, the sign that someone noticed. And because that need was there, other people had a lever on your life, and some of them used it, and some of them used it without even knowing. I am removing the lever. You will begin to notice that a passing remark which would have taken your whole week no longer reaches you the same way. That a silence you would have read as rejection simply passes. Not because you have stopped caring about people, but because your foundation is moved. You will know who you are because of what I have said about you, and no one gets a vote on that. And there is a reason for all of this that goes beyond your own life. What I am doing with you is not only for you. A woman named Esther was raised into a position she never asked for, in a palace, at a moment when her people were about to be destroyed, and she was afraid to act because acting could have cost her everything. The word that reached her was this: who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? She could have kept quiet and stayed safe. And it is written that deliverance would have come from somewhere else regardless. The question was never whether I could do it. The question was whether she would be part of it. That question is now in front of you. What I am bringing into your life will reach other people through you. Someone who is currently losing hope will look at what happens in your life and reconsider what is possible. That is part of why this was assigned to you, and part of why the preparation has been so thorough. Stay with me. I want to tell you how to recognize it when it arrives. Here is how you will know it is from me. It will not arrive with panic attached to it. Nothing I give demands that you decide before you can think. If something comes to you carrying pressure, secrecy that feels wrong, or a deadline designed to keep you from praying about it, that is not mine, no matter how much it resembles what you asked for. What I send settles. There is a particular quality to it, a rightness that sits down in you and stays. You may be surprised by it. You may even be frightened by the size of it. But underneath the surprise, there will be a steadiness that says, yes, this is the thing. It will also fit. It will not require you to become someone you are not, or to abandon what you know is true in order to receive it. What I have prepared was measured against your actual life, not against the life you have been pretending to have. And it may not look the way you pictured. That is almost certain, in fact. You have had an image in mind, and the image was built from what you have seen other people receive. What comes to you will be shaped for you specifically, which means it will look unfamiliar at first. Do not dismiss it because it arrived in different clothing than you expected. Now let me tell you about Jericho, because there is something in that account that people rush past. They were told to walk around the city once a day for 6 days, in silence. No shouting, no speeches, nothing from their mouths at all. Just walking, in full view of the people on the walls, doing something that accomplished nothing visible and made them look ridiculous. 6 days of that. 6 days of ending exactly where they started, with the wall standing as high as it had been that morning. Then on the 7th day they walked it 7 times, and they shouted, and the wall came down. The wall did not weaken gradually. There was no crack on the 3rd day to encourage them. Every single day of that week looked like complete failure right up until the moment it did not. You are somewhere in that week. I will not tell you which day, because if you knew, you would coast. But I will tell you that the absence of visible progress in your life is not evidence that nothing is happening. You have been reading the wall. Read the instruction instead, and notice the silence they were held to. They were not permitted to talk about it while they were walking it. There is a reason for that, and it is the same reason I asked you earlier to hold this quietly. Words spoken too early in a process can talk a person right out of finishing it. There is one more thing, and it is about interruption. When Nehemiah was building the wall of Jerusalem, his opponents sent a message asking him to come down and meet with them in a village on the plain. It sounded reasonable, a conversation, a meeting. He knew they intended harm, and he sent back an answer, "I want you to keep. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." They sent that same request 4 more times, and he gave the same answer every time. You are going to be invited down, not by enemies with obvious intentions, but by things that look like ordinary life. An old argument that wants reopening. A person from a closed season reaching out at exactly the wrong moment. A minor emergency that is not yours and could be handled by someone else. Small requests, reasonable in themselves, each one costing you a day. The strategy is not to destroy you. It is simply to get you off the wall. So learn that sentence. You do not have to explain yourself, and you do not have to be unkind. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Say it as many times as it takes. Now hear the last thing I have to say to you. You are not forgotten. You have wondered about that more than you have ever said out loud in the hours when the house was quiet and there was no one performing for. You have asked whether you were simply overlooked in the general order of things. The answer is no, and the proof is that you are hearing this at all. Your name is known, it has been spoken, and the decision made concerning it was made in your favor, before you cleaned yourself up, before you got your discipline right, before you managed to be the person you keep promising me you will become. Go and do the small thing you have been avoiding. Not tomorrow. It is smaller than you think, and it is the hinge that everything else turns on. Then set down what you have been carrying that was never assigned to you, and pick up what is. Watch the ones you love with a settled heart instead of an anxious one. Your fear for them has never protected them. My hand has. Those you carry in prayer are held, and they are held whether you are strong that day or not. Stop reading your life as a verdict. It is a paragraph in the middle of a chapter, and you have been trying to draw conclusions from an unfinished sentence. I am not far off. I am not slow. And I am not finished with you. Not remotely. Not by any measure you would recognize. Walk out of this moment differently than you walked into it. Let the change begin in something small enough to do today, because that is where all real change has ever begun. I have loved you through every season you thought you were alone in. I am with you in this one, and I will be with you in the one that comes after it. Now let it be settled in you, and let the word go out of your mouth. So be it, and amen.
We run on viewer support only. For exclusive member-only content, scan the QR or see the pinned comment. God bless you.